Welcome back to Frat Sports, everybody. I'm Chris,
I'm Charlie.
and we're here chilling out after a long Wednesday. Longer for me than you because I didn't have one of my favorite teams winning a playoff game tonight.
That's true. It was, I have to say, a very tense few hours there, just waiting for this Game 4 to start, but happy end to the night, I have to say.
Yeah, I'll say so. Happy for pretty much the entire game, 10-2. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. Some different things in this episode because, honestly, week slate of games over the weekend, so we kind of want to get in and out with some more interesting topics and try out some new things. First of which is stud and ass, which we did a little bit last time, but kind of want to extend a little bit to get the full amount of studly and ass-worthy events throughout the entire week. So I've got some nominations for you, Charlie. If you have any of your own, feel free to give them back. But I want to first start out with Andrew Miller, of the Cleveland Indians, while pitching this postseason, has given up 0 runs, but has struck out 13 guys in 5 games, and has been the most versatile postseason pitcher in the playoffs right now.
Just unbelievable numbers for this guy.
And he's like the postseason MVP.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a relief pitcher who hasn't pitched in the 9th inning more than once.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this guy, he's so versatile. Like, they can pretty much put him anywhere in those middle innings.
So the case is made pretty much for himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one that you might not be as big a fan of, but Clayton Kershaw, in not this game but the last game, pitching 7 shutout innings for the only time ever in his postseason career. And then Frank Kaminsky, which I thought was a perfect job of trolling until the Cubs... the Cubs won tonight's game, but it's still a long series. But to troll them, Frank Kaminsky was wearing around a Steve Bartman jersey, which I thought was hilarious. So I'm definitely trying to give him stud for that. What do you think?
I mean, he just set himself up so obviously here. I mean, if you lose in a big game and you're making fun of a team for losing a big game in a bad way, like, it's going to come back to you. Obviously, he's just laying this up for the Cubs Twitter. They obviously just came back right at him where they showed a picture.
Back?
Yeah, the clapback.
Clapback.
They post this picture of him losing in the college finals, and it's like, it's best not to dwell on a tough loss, Frank Kaminsky. So Cubs win this Twitter war, and you set yourself up, Frank. So don't feel that sorry for you.
All right. Well, any studs you want to throw out there?
I do. I want to throw out Ben Zobrist for stud. So obviously the Cubs have not been hitting well the past few games. They had no runs through 21 innings, and as far as 3 innings going into this game. So 4th inning, no hits so far. Ben Zobrist doesn't get a bunt sign from Joe Madden, but decides, what the heck? Let's get something started here. Puts down a perfect
Which is ballsy, because if you try to bunt on no bunt sign in a postseason game, the manager will pull you. If you don't
absolutely. I mean, I'm sure he just got an earful from Joe Madden if he gotten out, but lays down a perfect bunt, gets on, proceeds to start a 4-run inning, which is the first runs the Cubs have scored in 21 innings.
Yeah, oh my God, it's been a desert out there for them.
So yeah, stud to Zobrist for being ballsy and getting the rally started.
So I got one more nomination, which is one of my favorite people, someone who I pay homage to in my room every day with my prominent football display, which is Jim Harbaugh. No, not Massive. Jim Harbaugh, who... over the weekend, he was part of a chain gang for a high school football team. And when asked a question about this, he replied, being on the chain gang, they just said they needed a guy and promised me a tri-steak sandwich at halftime. That was all I needed to hear. Is that not the most Harbaugh thing you could possibly imagine?
I know he signed your football, so he must be a real person, but I've never actually seen him, so I only kind of believe he's a real person.
Yeah, all his antics are just ridiculous. So who do you think of all those guys you would give stud to?
I mean, I'm completely biased with Zobrist, but I gotta say Andrew Miller, actually. This guy has just put up unbelievable stats.
I'll give it to Miller as well.
Looking forward for the Cubs. He's one of the guys I'm most scared of, if the Cubs do advance, so it's gotta be Miller.
Andrew Miller, this week's stud. And for our ass nominations, first, a common topic throughout the NFL this season. OBJ, this week, decided that he wanted to marry the kicking net after a long string of antics involving an inanimate object. He has taken it to the next level and has made a full-time commitment to it, which is a terrible, terrible decision.
I mean, can we please talk about something related to OBJ, like regarding football, instead of everything that does not have to do with football?
What an ass!
I mean, honestly.
Also, one thing that I don't know if I talked to you about yet. Did you hear about the Mike Gundy
I did, conference? Yeah. I listened to some of that.
An interesting thought process, if you will. Could you explain it a little bit?
So I don't know a ton about this, but he was banging on millennials, right? He was saying, like, when he was a kid, he would go outside and play football.
Probably walk
or
10 miles to
or
school, through jungles with
Yeah,
tigers and
uphill
panthers.
both ways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so cell phones are ruining a generation of millennials and are causing bad football players because we don't play outside. It was basically the thought process.
I don't think that logic flows right. He's saying that they play on their cell phones or that they're just like texting all the time.
They're too busy playing on their cell phones to not learn practical football. Now, I know that he probably has a lot of players texting a good amount, but how does that impede you from learning practical football? I feel like they have enough time out on the field.
Right. No, it's obviously just a dumb old guy argument.
So kids, get off Mike Gundy's lawn. He's had enough of you. This is the same guy who...
He's a man. He's 40.
He's 40! All right, he's not a kid. Anyways. And my last ass nomination is Georgia for losing to Vanderbilt. You don't need to explain anything there. Georgia, you lost to Vanderbilt. Think about that.
I just feel so bad for Georgia though. Like I
don't.
The defining moment of their season is still that loss against Tennessee. I mean, I think they're still a little hungover from that, so I'll give them a slight pass there.
Well, they're only hungover because they've been on a bender literally since that pass got caught.
That's fair.
Which wouldn't even be the longest bender that I've seen this semester. So
But we won't go into that.
Relatively. And who's your? Do you have any nominations of your own?
I don't have any nominations because it's OBJ this week for us.
It is OBJ this week. OBJ, will you quit being an ass?
Just stop. He's such a prototypical.
So if Andrew Miller and OBJ are in the same room, you guys know what to do. And that ends the stud ass portion of the show, which brings us to just some general things that we wanted to cover and talk about, beginning with the NLCS. To recap tonight's game, the Cubs won 10-2 on a couple of big innings. The first offense that they've been able to generate in, what you said, the last 21 innings?
21 innings, yeah.
So finally striking water after what has been searching for a mirage. How do you feel as a Cubs fan? 2-2. You feeling good? You feeling confident?
So I knew going into this game, I knew that everybody was completely overreacting. So I actually checked the futures odds just because I was curious, what Vegas was thinking. And before Game 3, the odds were 10-11 that the Cubs would go to the World Series.
Yeah.
And then after they lost Game 3, it was a 70% chance that the Dodgers would advance and a 30% chance that the Cubs would advance.
After Game 3.
After Game 3.
To be fair, there is that, of the last, 20 teams to be 1-1 and, NLCSs, 18 of 20 have won the series if they win Game 3. So
all I know is
it's a real stat.
That's the closest I've been to ever betting on a series because I knew that was incredibly undervaluing the Cubs. I mean, it was obvious. They obviously have not been hitting well, but this team won 100 games.
They're still the best team in baseball.
They still have good players, obviously. So we saw it tonight. The hitting's back. They probably would have liked to have parsed those runs out a little bit over the last few games instead of getting 10 in one game. But going forward, we got Lester on the mound tomorrow. I think we'll win that game. Then we got to face Kershaw in Game 6, which I actually think the Dodgers will win that game.
This is setting up very well for Game 6.
Which will bring it back to Wrigley for Game 7.
And Arrieta? Or Hendricks?
Arrieta or Hendricks, that'll be a decision for Joe Madden. I would go with Hendricks because Arrieta has just been getting rocked in the playoffs.
He has, which has been amazing.
Reason.
I don't know why, but he's been missing with the breaking ball. He hasn't been able to locate the fastball enough to be dominating. And it hasn't been... his fastball's 93. His fastball's not... If he doesn't have, the break on that ball, it's meat. It's meat out there. And the Dodgers ate it up last game.
Well, that's the thing. Arrieta's whole game, it's painting corners and it's the wicked sinker. So when those two things aren't working, it's not going to be good for him. Although, Hendricks has not been that great in the playoffs either, though. So, he maxes out at, 89, 90 miles an hour. One of the slowest pitchers in the playoffs.
But his style isn't built on strength.
Right, but I'm just saying, when you have that big a weakness, everything else needs to be working well for you to be effective. So.
I suppose so.
Yeah,
so are you confident?
I'm confident.
Are you willing to guarantee a win on here?
I'm not guaranteeing anything, because there's nothing bad, nothing good could come out of that, but I think the Cubs will advance to the World Series.
You want to make a 6-pack bet?
You want to bet the Dodgers?
I'll bet the Dodgers for a 6-pack.
Oh, absolutely. You got yourself a deal.
There's a handshake that actually happened here. For those of you who aren't viewing on video, which is none of you because we don't do video yet, but that's coming soon. Shameless plug. Anyways, moving on to a topic that I intend to dwell on for quite a few minutes. The NFL has recently been experiencing a little bit of a ratings dip this season. Now, whether or not this is due to the product being inferior to past years, whether or not it's due to the presidential elections and other big events happening, whether or not it's due to the countless amount of things that the league has been dealing with, a 10% drop is a 10% drop.
Mm-hmm.
And for a league that is predicting multi-billion-dollar gains going forward, especially the much talked about numbers, $25 billion in the next 15 or in the next 10 years. What do you think about this ratings drop, Charlie? And do you think that goal is still something that's realistic?
Yeah, there's so many factors that go into these types of things. I mean, obviously the election, if you look at ratings history, every presidential election, all sports ratings kind of drop a little bit.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense, yeah. But the other things are kind of hard to quantify.
Well, it's not 10% difference either.
Yeah, right. But just, I mean, the other things, like, we were talking about this off air a little bit before, but there's just so many uninteresting teams in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to quantify in terms of, like, lack of storylines. But just going through, like, the past scores in the last week, like, there's just so many teams where they're either bad or uninteresting or both.
Well, so there's a real problem.
There's almost too much parity right now.
Well, there's a real problem to outline in what the construction of the last collective bargaining agreement did to sort of the dynamics of the NFL and how exactly teams value players. Because when the agreement was first happened, the thought process going in was one of the major priorities was to reduce rookie contracts because you had way too many top draft picks making tons and tons of guaranteed money and not delivering, and teams were angry about that, and the salary caps were suffering, and also many players thought that the veterans were the people who deserved that money. So they thought if you reduce the starting salary for rookies, especially top draft picks, the money would still stay in the cap because you expect a team to spend around that cap, and they even enforce a minimum cap to get to that number, but the money hasn't been going to veterans like the plan was supposed to have. Instead, actually, what it's caused teams to do is to pay for their stars, as much as any team is able to, but instead of that money actually going to the veterans, what it's done is you've just been able to amass teams have been hoarding the money in certain places, but then they bring in younger players because you can get them at a much better value. So it's caused sort of this recycling of young players going in and out of the league in valuable positions like running back, wide receiver, line, etc., where I guess you can say young players are going in and out quicker than ever before. The average lifespan of a player has shortened this season, or shortened in recent years since the collective bargaining agreement, and the average age of the entire league has actually gone down. So whereas a change that was supposed to promote spending on veterans has actually caused the opposite, where instead it's just teams are hoarding young players on low salaries because essentially for their first few years of their career, and then especially their second contract, if they haven't blown up yet, they're really kind of being underpaid and undervalued just kind of by how the league is constructed.
Right, and you mentioned young players. I mean, the biggest thing the NFL needs right now is a new class of quarterbacks that are going to be those franchise guys for 10-plus years.
Yeah.
I mean, the Brady, Manning, Breeze, even Rodgers, kind of, those guys are getting older. They're going to be retired soon.
But there's a huge gap there.
There is a huge gap there. That's the thing. So if we can get the Wentz, Jameis Winston even, Marcus Mariota, if some of those guys can pan out and we get another strong era of quarterbacks in the NFL, I think that'll definitely help the ratings.
The issue, of course, with that is players aren't allowed to have personalities.
Exactly, yeah.
Which makes it hard to follow a new generation of personality, is players aren't allowed to have a personality anymore.
Yeah.
There's things like the celebration rule, which is obviously a little bit juvenile, but just in its inception makes no sense.
Who was the one guy that did the celebration where it was like the robot, where he just like put the ball down, like walked off, just clearly trying to like stick it to the NFL?
I cannot remember, but yeah, no, that
was hilarious.
It's gotten to a ridiculous point where you can't do the bow and arrow. I mean, what about the bow and arrow?
Redskins? Like, come on.
What? Like, that has anything to do... This
guy's
guy's been doing the bow and arrow celebration his entire career. It's Josh Norman, right?
Yeah.
He did it on the Panthers. This is not a Redskin-centric thing, and don't tell me you think he got fined for that just because he's on the Redskins. Antonio Brown can't twerk. I mean, no one can do anything creative or put any of their own personality in the game without facing a league fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest statement to that is I watched a video on Facebook the other day for literally 7 minutes, and it was the Chinese Football League, and it was just hilarious celebrations.
Yeah.
I mean, that's entertaining.
That's the kind of thing that we like as fans.
Right.
And that's one of the great things about the NBA.
It's not. It doesn't dilute the product at all. I mean, that's just this narrative that the NFL has kind of developed for themselves, and I don't think there's any basis to it.
It's a problem that baseball's recently had of an old generation going out of the league and needing a new crop of young stars to fill it. And honestly, the edgiest youngster I can think of right now in the NFL is Ezekiel Elliott, and they don't allow him to wear his jersey the way he likes to. I haven't really heard a peep from him this whole season, which from a football standpoint you think is good, but from a marketing standpoint is boring and awful.
Yeah, he's been very well behaved.
And when we think about storylines,
especially on the Cowboys,
I mean he should be getting coverage. That I should at least be hearing things that he has to say and seeing who he is now as a professional. But the league has gone through such a large effort to keep these guys insulated from the outside world, and it makes sense from a football perspective that you want these guys to be focused, but I think the product is suffering as a result.
Well, I think obviously in the new CBA, two of the biggest emphases are going to be, addressing celebrations and player personalities, because they do need more star power.
It won't be that. It'll be addressing Roger Goodell's authority. And
that was my next point. Roger Goodell needs much. I mean, he can't just be the judge and executioner in every single issue. They need some kind of committee to decide these things, and they need to ask fans what their opinion is, or people outside of Roger Goodell's head.
Well, but I think one of the reasons for that 10% rating drop is it's very clear that they stopped listening to the fans and have been listening to the profit line for a little bit too long. Mm-hmm. Any great company knows that you have to sort of balance those two dynamics. You can't always do things to appease the fans, of course. You can never give in to every fan demand. But there's a certain amount of you go too far, you penny pinch too far, you ask slightly too much, and you irk people for so long, where the sports landscape is a vibrant one, where fans can go anywhere to get their fix.
Right. That's the thing.
You don't want to watch the NFL. In the fall, basketball's starting up, hockey's starting up. We have, championship soccer going on. We have MLB playoffs. There are other things to satisfy our entertainment needs. The NFL doesn't have a monopoly over this like they'd like to. The college ratings have stayed similar because college is frankly a more exciting, even with the NCAA, a less polluted fan experience. I feel like it's really the corporatism of the NFL is really starting to catch up with itself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the NBA. NBA ratings are increasing. There's a ton of good storylines.
They're going the right direction. And you have multiple generations that you can follow in the NBA.
Exactly.
I mean, you have the current old generation that consists of LeBron, Paul Pierce, these old legends who used to dominate the league. You have guys currently dominating the league like Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, KD, etc. And then you have an amazing rookie and sophomore class that's come out of the last two drafts that are going to decide the destiny of the NBA for the next decade and a half. Mm-hmm. All of these players are in the league right now, and we're all following them. Mm-hmm. And the fact that when we think about the NFL, and we're looking at last week's game, is are any of these teams we want to talk? The only mildly interesting team I thought was Eagles, because they have rookie Carson Wentz, they're playing well, but none of these other teams interest me.
Yeah.
Case Keenum, the Rams haven't played the number one overall pick yet. The Browns look like one of the worst teams in the NFL. No one knows if the Packers are right. I mean, the Super Bowl picks are obviously the Vikings, Patriots, and maybe you want to swing in, the Broncos are a third or fourth team, but there's only four or so contenders. The Panthers look awful, even though they have probably the most marketable star in the NFL, but we've heard nothing from him because his team's 1-5.
Right.
This is an awkward situation to be in as a league.
I mean, it does seem like a lot of things haven't gone right for the NFL. Some of the best storylines they could have had were Cam doing well, pursuing another Super Bowl after losing.
Instead, he won't answer questions at a press conference.
Instead, he's being a baby again. The Rams, if they were doing better, that would have been really interesting. Moving out to LA. So I think there was some potential for good storylines going into the season that have just kind of fizzled out.
Well, and I feel worn out because, and especially when the Colin Kaepernick thing became such a controversy and dominated so many of the airwaves at the end of the preseason. That story, along with all of the other debacles and scandals that the NFL has had, really dating back to last year. When did that Ray Rice thing happen? Was that last year or 2 years ago?
Oh, God. That was... it feels like 2 years ago.
I feel like it might be 2 years ago. But really, since they had that just debacle, since it became clear that whether or not they were being truthful in their statements, it was clear that they knew something and that it was buried along the way by somebody. And ever since then, they've really just never recovered. Mm-hmm. Ever since then, Roger Goodell has been the authoritative dictator that he's become accustomed to being, and I feel like he's really led the product to suffer. And this 10% ratings drop is just the beginning. And as I said before, the NFL's not going to hit that $25 billion mark, and they're definitely not going to hit it by 2027.
Yeah.
The game needs to be more accessible to fans, and right now it is not. Yep. And that's now, I think the drop-off for an entire institution like that doesn't happen in a day. You're not going to... This 10% ratings drop, I feel like, is one of what will be very few easy to tell signs off the bat, but I think you'll see a very quick decline in fan interest in the sport, which will soon follow a monetary decline and collapse.
Right. I mean, the counter-argument to that is, well, Roger Goodell works for the owners. He's not about the fans. But guess who the owners work for? The fans.
Exactly.
So it all comes back to the fans.
It
you
always
gotta,
does.
You gotta make it accessible.
And we haven't even said the C word, and we haven't even talked about how it's a scientific fact that football destroys your body.
Right.
And when it's not an attractive fan product, there aren't any compelling storylines.
It's kind of looming over the horizon.
And it objectively destroys the people that plays it slowly but surely. You literally deteriorate as a person. I don't know what the NFL will have to offer in a few years. I don't know when 2020 comes around, when Tom Brady's retired, when Drew Brees has retired, when Philip Rivers is retired, when all these personalities have left. What will be there to fill the void concerns me and should concern every owner.
Odell Beckham will be there.
Odell Beckham will be there. He'll be marrying, kicking nets. I mean, he's like one of the only.
Maybe he won't
characters.
Be there actually.
But it's funny because he's being painted as a problem. But I tell you what, he's been one of the most consistent talking points throughout this entire season, and he's one of the only interesting players. Which is weird because in a team sport like football, it's a very almost conflicting dynamic. Where in a sport that is frankly entertainment, and in a business that is all about selling the customer on something that is fun, when you are someone who has antics like Odell, whether or not you think it's fun or not or appropriate or not is frankly irrelevant, he is a talking point and therefore is a marketable product for the NFL. It's interesting that almost whenever that happens, unless it's in charming commercials like Peyton Manning, it's considered a bad thing. And football people talk down upon it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is strongly discouraged.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I know that he's been a total punk this year, but the NFL as a business needs that. And I just think it's interesting how everyone inside the league is justifiably dissuading him from doing it.
Well, and honestly, like, this ratings drop might be the catalyst that,
we'll see after the election. We'll see in the playoffs. We'll see when the playoffs roll around if people are still watching. But I won't be surprised if there are bad ratings for, like, historically bad ratings and people are ultimately uninterested.
Well, it's funny because one of the big stories this season has been.
Let's talk about the one interesting story.
The Cowboys in general, honestly. You got Zeke Elliott, just tearing it up, and then you got the quarterback position. We got Dak Prescott and Tony Romo.
The only interesting topic in the NFL.
The impending collision when one of them is going to have to be the starter and one of them is going to have to sit on the bench.
We both agree that the Cowboys should start Dak, right?
Cowboys should start Dak, absolutely, but.
Every reasonable sports fan or anyone who knows anything about football should probably agree on
Except Jerry Jones. He thinks he should start Tony.
He's made one or a couple of questionable personnel decisions.
That's
just
true.
A few.
So anyway, in the case that Dak does start, obviously Tony Romo is not just going to sit on the bench. He's going to want to get traded somewhere.
Oh, and they should trade him.
And they should trade him. I mean, this is one of the ideal situations for
the
the
only
Cowboys.
time I can think of a team that is going to fleece so much value out of a broken product is when the Eagles were able to ship Sam Bradford.
Oh my! I knew you were going to mention Sam Bradford.
I mean, I'm just saying, like the
broken
last time.
Product. This man is 5-0. Jeez.
I mean, you could not look me straight in the eyes and tell me that you thought he would guide the Vikings to 3 straight wins and play flawless.
I didn't think he'd play flawless, but I was telling you that this guy was going to be.
But
anyways, he's going to be worth the trade.
Tony Romo trade possibilities.
I mean,
there are a lot of interesting places that he could go.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
first and foremost, the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Are the Denver Broncos a Super Bowl favorite if they trade for Tony Romo?
I mean, absolutely. They just did that with an old quarterback. They just won a Super Bowl with an aging quarterback who can't really throw it downfield anymore.
An Asian quarterback?
Aging quarterback.
Aging quarterback.
Yeah. No, they're absolutely Super Bowl favorites if they get him. The interesting thing is that they'll be at price.
Yeah, really. I mean,
what's the market value for this guy?
If the Denver Broncos walk into your office and you're Jerry Jones, I would ask for 3 first-round picks.
3 first-round picks?
Yeah, that's a super.
Oh my goodness!
You're basically giving them.
I'm not taking
a Super Bowl ring.
I'm not trading 3 first-round picks.
They gave 3 first-round picks for Carson Wentz.
I'll give you 1 first-round pick and some.
Oh, at least 2. At least 2.
I'm not giving up 2 first-round picks.
But that's a Super Bowl guarantee.
It's not a guarantee.
How many first-round picks were given up for Jared Goff? For the first-round pick to get Jared Goff?
I don't remember.
2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, and a third-rounder.
Wow, really?
That's the price.
Man.
And that's just for a franchise quarterback, yeah, but we're talking about a surefire shot at the Super Bowl, and especially, the Broncos picks. the Broncos are going to do well no matter what. But especially if they have Tony Romo, that's the 32nd pick. So that's the least valuable first-round pick.
So do you know how old Tony Romo is?
He's 36 years old.
36.
I can see your computer screen.
Dang. All right. So you
You're
have
not
what?
subtle, Charlie.
You have what, like 2.5, 3 years left with this guy? Absolute max. That's assuming he doesn't break his collarbone.
You took a rental on
5
Sam
more
Bradford
times.
for one first-round pick, and I mean Tony Romo.
He's younger.
Okay, but you also had no idea what you were getting, one. And two, he's a rental because his contract is 1 year.
He might not be a rental.
But he only has 1 year.
They might re-sign him,
But his contract was 1 year, so inherently it's a rental.
Okay.
That's like the definition of a rental in terms of trading in sports. When they're on their last year, it's a rental.
Okay.
Because if he has a good year now, if they win the Super Bowl, you know what he's going to do? He's going to go to a terrible team and make $25 million a year.
That's true.
Because the Vikings are not giving him $25 million a year, especially not when they have Teddy Bridgewater still.
Yeah, I mean, all that is to be decided. I would give two.
If I was the Broncos, I would give 2 first-round picks for Tony Romo easily.
I guess I'd consider 2. I'd give him a really intense physical to see like.
I mean, do you
where
believe
his
in
health is
Simeon?
at. No, not at all.
I don't think they're really a contender with Simeon.
No.
So you're trading for the ability to compete for a Super Bowl. Because it's also important, especially from the value perspective of the Dallas Cowboys, that they know this is the difference between the Broncos contending or not.
This is just hilarious because we had this exact same conversation about Sam Bradford a few weeks ago. We were saying you are trading because it's a short-term deal. But you're trading for the opportunity to win the Super Bowl.
Not only is Tony Romo a much more guaranteed product.
Oh, guaranteed. Okay, first of all, health-wise, there's no guarantees with this guy.
Well, health-wise, maybe. Yeah, but I mean, Sam Bradford has injury concerns if we're making that comparison.
Yeah, but not Tony Romo. I mean, Tony Romo's older and he's been hurt more.
He has not been hurt more. Pull up the stats.
He has.
Sam Bradford has missed how many full seasons? 2.
How many games?
He's missed 2 full seasons.
How many times
he played like 8 games for the team. Tony Romo's broken his collarbone twice. It's at least equal.
It's been more than twice.
Google it. It's been twice.
I don't believe you. Well, he's had other injuries besides that too.
But it's also his back
stuff. Yeah.
But so they're both injury concerns. But Tony Romo has the fourth quarter stats. He has the pedigree, and he has the talent that is objectively better than Sam Bradford. He's been the Cowboys quarterback for a decade. Sam Bradford had not been a consistent starter for anyone before getting traded. He was not the Eagles' consistent starter. They were going to Carson Wentz, and he never played for the Rams. Or he was never the long-term starter. He never played a full season for them. So you're making a comparison between someone who never was a consistent starting quarterback and someone who captained a team.
So,
for a
Romo
decade.
is worth another first-round pick because of all that.
Well, and particularly because he's the difference between contending for a Super Bowl and not.
I think my opening offer is 1 first-rounder and 1 second-rounder, and then
no way.
After that, we'll see where the negotiation goes, but.
Yeah,
2 first-rounders?
A sweet 2 first-rounders. Yeah,
I mean, this guy's got a year and a half left in his career.
Well, he probably is. Well, look at the quarterback they won with last year. A guy who was arguably already done. Arguably already washed up, and they won a Super Bowl with him.
That man could not he could not tie his own shoes.
Literally, he could not tie his shoes! And he won a Super Bowl with the best defense in the league, which is exactly what the point
but that's the thing.
But
he was still on the field. That's I'm not questioning what Tony Romo can do while he's on the field. I'm questioning whether he can be on the field at all.
It's the same kind of deal. They'll just shoot him up with cortisone and he'll get out of there. Tony Romo didn't even want to go off the field when he literally broke his collarbone.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Just throw a left hand.
They had to drag him off the field still. He's going to stand. He
can throw with his left hand. It's no big deal.
I mean, Matt Stafford threw a game-winning touchdown with a separated shoulder.
Here we go, Matt Stafford.
I mean,
where's his signed football?
Saying,
is it
Brad Stafford, #1, and someone on NFL Network or something called him the best quarterback in the league. Look, I'm a Lions fan, but that guy's dumb as shit.
He's trying to get ratings, man. You got to do anything in this kind of environment.
No, you don't. That's just a sacrifice of journalistic integrity. Even as
when is that a problem in today's journalistic environment?
I'm a huge homer, and I'm a diehard Lions fan.
Just fire off
calling
Trump
Stafford the best quarterback in the league is fucking disrespectful. And I do not condone any of that.
I agree.
Anyways, so the Broncos are one possibility. Wow, we talked about that for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was just the Broncos.
The Jets, but the Jets aren't going to trade for him. Really, any team that needs a quarterback. But why would the Jets trade for him?
Yeah,
they're not contending.
Right, that's the thing. There are very few contending teams.
The Rams could trade. That'd be hilarious. They don't have any,
Yeah,
they
the
don't have
Rams.
anything
I
to
don't
give.
think they're enough of a contender to.
I think it'd be hilarious if the Texans did because they don't have a
What about
quarterback.
the Redskins?
They have Kirk Cousins.
Right.
But this is Kirk Cousins' season. They're giving him a season. They just wouldn't make the trade. They're not in that position.
Bills, maybe?
No, they got Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, right. You're just naming mediocre quarterbacks.
Well, yes, but is Tony
Who have
Romo
good
that much?
teams.
But is Tony Romo that much of an upgrade over Tyrod Taylor? Not really.
Yes.
Not really.
I mean, he's definitely. I mean, do you think the Bills have a good enough roster to go to a Super Bowl if they had the right quarterback?
Not if they had Tony Romo at quarterback.
That Rod Ryan defense. Rod Ryan defense.
I mean, just because the Bills have played well for a few games doesn't mean that he's suddenly gone from one of the worst coordinators for 2 years to like 3 games later. Oh, he's great again. That's not how it works.
What about Texans?
What I just said. Yeah, they could. The only issue is they're still paying that other guy like $16 million a year.
Osweiler?
Yeah, to theoretically be the franchise
Wow,
quarterback.
What a bust for that guy.
What a train. Everyone said the day that they signed that contract that it would be bad. I know that you're not supposed to listen to the fans, but maybe you should have listened to them or anybody else who knew that Osweiler would be a train wreck. But you didn't. And now the Texans are terrible.
Well, I mean, our lack of ability to come up with other landing spots is good leverage for the Cowboys because they'd probably get at least 2 first-rounders.
That's what I'm saying.
There's no other landing spots. Yeah.
God, anyways, any other football topics you want to talk about?
That's all I got from this pretty mediocre NFL season so far.
Yeah,
hopefully it'll spice it up a little bit in the second half.
Yeah. You think we're going to fire Clay Helton?
I mean, this season or like after the season?
I don't know. I remember when we were 1-3, everyone was talking about we'd be like a 3 or 4 win team. I was still saying they go 8-4. I feel great about that right now. Just saying.
I like Darnold a lot.
Darnold is awesome.
This team has talent
low
everywhere.
key. Darnold came in with no starts, no experience, a redshirt freshman, has come in and been even with the awful fumbles and terrible mistakes, has been the ultimate catalyst between us being a terrible 3-win team and us being a passable 7-8 win team.
Right, I mean,
he's that difference. He's
Max
4
Brown,
games.
Max Brown felt like just kind of like a poor man's Kessler, but Darnold was just like a completely
Max
different
Brown's
guy.
just a poor man's quarterback.
All right.
You just don't have him if you have any other options.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think they fire him eventually. I think they'll just back up the Brinks truck for somebody, coming up here.
Chip Kelly.
Yeah,
Kelly.
honestly, Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly.
Chip
Kelly.
Honestly,
Chip Kelly.
if I was
Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly.
If I was Lynn Swann, I would fly up to Stanford and I would write David Shaw. I would just give him a blank check. Say, whatever you want. If you come here, we will pay you anything. That guy would
Shaw?
he'd be our number 1 pick.
Well, first of all, you're never going to pry that guy away from Stanford.
I know you're not, but he'd be awesome.
Who, if you could, any of the actual, who do you think are the prospective coaching candidates who we could actually get? Because I have one that I'm actually looking at who I think could legitimately be fired, and who we should definitely pick up if he does.
I mean, Les Miles has been talked about a lot.
But I just don't think he's going to come to USC.
Why?
Because I don't think he fits our personality.
I mean, maybe that's a good thing, though.
He's too authentic to be a coach in LA.
Okay, but that's the thing. Maybe that's what Clay Helton is, too. Is he too authentic for LA?
Coach Helton's just kind of there.
He's just not a head coach.
He's not really he's not overly authentic. He's very not political. He's very he doesn't give away information. He's not he doesn't have hilariously endearing press conferences or sayings and things like that. Les Miles.
He's not Pete Carroll.
Yeah, he's certainly not fucking Pete Carroll. Les Miles is a very Pete Carroll kind of off the wall, but great coach with success. But he's also notably crazy kind of guy. You know what I'm looking at? Bob Stoops.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Oklahoma head coach, been there for well over a decade, but if you'll notice, hasn't won a big game there in a while. In fact, I feel like what he's definitely most notorious for is losing big games.
Very much
last year in the playoffs, got lucky with Baker Mayfield last season, but again, when the bell tolled in the playoffs, they fell dramatically short. This year has been a complete disappointment, and I look at Bob Stoops and I see Mark Richt, who at Georgia had 8-9 win seasons almost every year, objective success, but after a decade plus, the fans sort of start to get over it.
Yeah, but that's also coaching the SEC versus the ACC. Just a lot
you mean
easier.
The Big 12?
No, I'm talking about Mark Richt. When he moved to Miami.
Why the ACC?
To Miami.
Oh, well, yeah, no, but all right. Also Big 12.
So yeah, I'm just saying,
anywhere that's not the SEC.
Making that move is like you're obviously it's gonna be a lot easier for you to win in that conference versus the SEC. I'm just saying, I think the Big 12 to the Pac-10,
he didn't make the move to get fired.
No. What I'm saying, like, it's easier to improve when you're going to that kind of conference. I think it's more of a lateral move from the Big 12.
This is about him improving. This is about the fact that he was a coach somewhere for more than a decade, had an 8-4 record, and got fired.
Okay, are you talking about Mark Richt right now? Or
yes, I'm talking about Mark Richt.
Yeah.
I'm saying that Bob Stoops' situation is very similar.
Yeah.
And I think that they could fire. I think this is the year where they had top 5 expectations, came in with Baker Mayfield, came in with a supposed stalwart defense, and have shown none of that, and have suffered, frankly, embarrassing losses.
Mm-hmm.
To teams that they at least should have been more. They haven't even been competitive in these games.
Yeah, I mean that's
Louisville to start the season, right? Trounced them, or who was the first one to really? Because Louisville beat Florida State.
Yeah,
but I forget who was the first one to trounce them. But they've been embarrassed so far. If they lost the Red River rivalry, I would have guaranteed his firing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, Texas has their own issues, obviously.
Yeah, Texas probably got fired.
They lost to Houston to start the season.
That's what it was. But they got beat down by Houston.
Yeah.
What was the final score in that game?
33-23.
All right, but they got physically manhandled. Yeah. So, anyways, that's pretty much all I want to talk about. How about you, Charles?
That's all I got, man.
All right, well,
excited for basketball. Excited for some baseball. End of the playoffs coming up here.
Great time to be a sports fan. I can't wait for the NBA season to fall. Some interesting storylines.
Oh yeah. So next week.
Next week, maybe over the next week, we'll be talking about NBA a little bit, and trying to get you guys involved with some more stuff. So stay tuned. Thank you guys for listening. We're cutting off about a half an hour early tonight, so we don't have to drone on your brains for the next 20 minutes. So you're welcome. We do it for the people. But anyways, have a good one, guys. 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 Have a good one, guys.